All right, so get ready because we're diving into the world of stop motion, you know, bringing inanimate objects to life, one frame at a time. We're going through this RoleCatcher career guide, the one you shared, and we're going to figure out what it really takes to, make it in this field. And something tells me it's more complicated than it looks.
It is pretty amazing. It's not just about artistic talent, though that's important. You need meticulous planning, technical skills.
Hmm.
You really need a lot of patience, that's for sure. I'd say it's kind of like filmmaking meets sculpture all in one.
Okay, that's a cool way to put it. So it's not all about artistic magic then. There's more to it.
Oh, for sure. It takes a unique combination of artistry, yeah, but also technical know-how. Stop motion animators have got to get lighting, composition,
Mhm.
even physics. If you want those movements to look real, you got to know this stuff.
Wow. I never even thought about the physics of making like a clay figure walk. You're totally right. So the guide also mentions how animators work on all these different projects. What skills would you say you need for, say, a fast-paced commercial versus a full-length feature film? Those seem totally different.
Great question. Commercials.
Yeah.
Yeah, those usually have super quick cuts, so you need a knack for those really snappy, eye-catching movements. But feature films, totally different beast. You need a much deeper understanding of how to develop characters, get the emotion across, even tell a story with just small gestures.
So are you saying a stop-motion animator working on a commercial is like a master illusionist, tricking the eye? But for a feature film, it's more like being a method actor, getting inside the character's head.
You got it. And the cool thing is stop motion attracts people with all kinds of strengths. And get this, animators aren't just animating. They're building sets, making props, sometimes even directing voice actors.
Whoa, seriously. So it's like being a director, set designer, puppeteer, and animator. Talk about wearing a lot of hats. That's wild. So, with all that in mind, what's a typical workday even look like for someone in this field?
All right, picture this. You're on set, right? And you're surrounded by all these puppets. They're super detailed and there's miniature landscapes, the whole 9 yards. But the guide mentions it can be tough on the body. You're standing for hours making these tiny adjustments to like little puppet limbs, frame by frame.
Wow. I get why patience is non-negotiable in this job. You'd have to practically see time in slow motion.
Totally. And don't forget the potential dangers. Some of
Yeah.
the materials you're dealing with, like clay, paint, resins, you got to handle those carefully. Safety first, always.
Right, of course. So it's not all whimsical puppets and playful claymation, huh? There's a serious side to stop motion.
100%. But that's why I like that this RoleCatcher guide is so balanced. It shows both sides, the magical stuff and the demanding parts.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, so let's talk tech for a sec. I know stop motion has been around forever, but how has all this new tech, like motion capture and 3D printing, how have those things changed the game?
Ooh, that's where things get really interesting. Take motion capture, for instance. Imagine capturing those super subtle movements of an actor, and then boom, you could put that onto a puppet.
Wow. That's going to bring a whole new level of realism to the
For
characters.
sure. And 3D printing. That's revolutionizing how these puppets and props are made.
Yeah.
Now you can have crazy intricate designs and prototypes get made way faster.
Hmm.
But don't get it twisted, this tech isn't replacing traditional skills, it's adding to them. It's making even more creative possibilities, which is awesome.
It's like stop motion got a tech upgrade, but the heart of it, that artistry, the dedication, all that stays the same.
Exactly.
I love that. So with all these new tools, what's out there for aspiring animators? What kind of career paths can they look forward to?
Well, the career ladder in stop motion is pretty similar to other parts of filmmaking, actually. You usually start out as a junior animator, working your way up, intermediate, and then eventually maybe you're leading a team as a senior animator.
Okay, so it's like leveling up in a video game. Start with the basics, then you get those advanced moves. I like it. So the RoleCatcher guide actually gives some examples of these career paths, like what a typical journey might look like. What can you tell us about that?
Oh, they do a really good job of bringing each stage to life, I gotta say.
Yeah.
So imagine this. You're a junior animator. You're right there in the action, assisting the more senior animators, maybe doing some camera work, setting up lights, even just like carefully positioning those puppets. It's a lot of learning the ropes.
Sounds like you got to be patient and super precise. So when do you get to really spread your wings? When do you start calling the shots as an animator?
Well, that's where moving up to intermediate animator comes in. The guide talks about how at this level you get more creative freedom. Like maybe you're designing your own puppets or you're doing storyboards, even animatics.
Hold on, animatics? What's that? Is it like a rough draft of the animation with still
You
images?
got it, like a moving storyboard. So you can see the flow, the timing. It's like a blueprint for your animation. Oh, and here's a cool detail.
Hmm.
The guide says at this level, you might start mentoring junior animators, passing down what you've learned.
It's like a master apprentice thing. Love it. So you learn, you grow, you teach. That's the circle of life right there. Okay, so final level. Senior animator. What does it take to reach the top of Mount Stop Motion, you know?
Think of a senior animator like the conductor of an orchestra, but with animation. You're leading a whole team, you're developing the style of the animation, plus you got to work closely with the directors, the producers, making sure everything fits the vision of the project.
So not only do you need that artistic talent and those technical skills, you got to be a leader, a visionary, heck, maybe a diplomat with all those creative people.
You're not wrong, and the guide really stresses this. Technology is always changing in this field. So a senior animator has to be ready to adapt. Got to be learning those new tools and techniques all the time, or you get left behind. Remember, motion capture, 3D printing. Imagine leading a team that uses all that plus the traditional stuff. That's next level.
That's where the magic happens. Old school meets new school. Pushing the limits. I love it. But let's get down to brass tacks for a sec. What does RoleCatcher say to those aspiring animators who are, trying to break into this industry? It's got to be competitive.
Oh, they're big on having a standout portfolio, that's for sure. And not just to show you've got the skills, it's got to have your style, show you can tell a story. It's got to have that spark.
Like a resume, but instead of words, it's like, boom, look what I can do. I bring things to life.
Exactly. But it's not enough to just make cool stuff. People got to see it. The guide's really big on networking, going to industry events, film festivals, even connecting with other animators online.
See, networking, that word makes some people nervous. Any advice for those of us who are maybe a little less comfortable with putting ourselves out there?
I hear you. Well, the guide suggests starting with those online communities. There are tons of them. You've got forums, social media groups, even online workshops. You can meet other animators, share your work, get feedback. It's a nice way to ease into it.
So dip your toes in the water before you cannonball into the deep end. I can get behind that.
Precisely. And you know what else is great? Online contests.
Mm.
They're a fun way to challenge yourself, maybe get your work in front of some important eyes. You might even win something.
Awards. Recognition. Now you're speaking my language.
But seriously, it sounds like RoleCatcher thought of everything. They don't just stop at the career basics, do they? Nope, they don't. They've got sections on all sorts of stuff, like
Right.
how to actually make puppets, build sets, even lighting and cinematography. They even get into interview prep, so you're ready to wow them when you get that interview.
That's so cool. It's like they really want aspiring animators to, actually succeed, not just dream about it. But, after all this talk about portfolios and networking, I got to bring it back to the magic for a second. There's just something about taking something that's like not alive at all and making it move. One tiny movement at a time. It's so cool.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It makes you wonder. With all this CGI these days, kind of taking over animation, how can stop motion still grab people? How can it still be its own thing?
That's a really good question. I mean, yeah, CGI can make these crazy realistic worlds, but stop motion, it's got that charm, that like tangible quality. It feels more, I don't know,
Handmade.
100%. It's that imperfection, You can see the artist's touch, the way the light hits it. It's like stop motion has a soul. And CGI, I don't care how good it gets, it just can't do that. It's like comparing a perfect digital photo to like a vintage Polaroid. They both capture a moment. But the Polaroid, it's got that raw, real feel. You can't fake that.
That is such a good way to put it. And I think that's what's going to keep people hooked on stop motion. That wonder, that handmade vibe. But what do you think? How else can stop motion do well, even with CGI everywhere?
Well, I was reading this thing the other day about how some studios are mixing stop motion with other kinds of animation. Like, picture this, a stop motion character, but they're in a CGI world. The possibilities are endless.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Stop motion is always up for trying new stuff, changing things up, like using new tech, but respecting the old ways too. And there's such a strong community, this shared passion for pushing boundaries. It's awesome.
It really is inspiring. It shows you that even now, with all this tech, there's still room for art forms that are, made by hand. Art that captures your imagination and takes you to a different place. It's about keeping that wonder alive one frame at a time.
So well said. And who even knows what incredible stories we'll see in the future, right?
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure. Stop motion isn't going anywhere.
Absolutely. So to anyone listening who's ever thought about bringing puppets to life, about making stories frame by frame, about joining this amazing community, what are you waiting for?
Don't be afraid to just go for it. Dive into the world of stop motion. You might just shock yourself with what you're capable of.
And on that note of endless possibility, that's a wrap on this deep dive. We've gone through the good, the challenging, all of it. We hope you've enjoyed learning about stop motion animation as much as we have.
Don't forget, the world of animation is out there, so go get creative and never stop animating.